Shooting again. I've immediately started shooting again so that there's no unnatural, next we're going to talk about this kind of thing.
For our next topic.
And yet, amazingly, I've completely forgotten where we left off. 5-finger socks. Wearing correct posture. If you haven't seen the first video, please, you'd be dumb to be watching the second one first. No, you're just a rebel. Running. Wow, how did this happen? I'm like,
you run in canabalt, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's the running is a very good topic for this. It seems to make sense. We're also on a rooftop in a city, and there was a pigeon right down there for like 10 minutes, and now he's gone. Wait, is there a pigeon over there?
Seagulls over there.
So wait, what are the birds in canabalt? Are they pigeons?
Yeah, they're pigeons or doves or all the different whatever names they have. They're a little.
Pigeons and doves are nearly the same genus,
I think they're exactly the same.
Aren't they? Yeah, because a lot of what people think are pigeons are actually doves.
Yeah.
Like there's doves that aren't white,
Right, yeah.
So a friend of mine was saying, I was asking people I know, what questions do you have for a canabalt guy,
Yeah.
And they're like, nobody actually gave me any questions because most of the people I know on the internet who like video games are these artist people. So they're like, ask him if it's true that without the pigeons there would be no story in canabalt. He's like, ask him if canabalt wouldn't be a complete experience at all without the pigeons. The pigeons are 90% of the artistic expression of the game, and why it works as a piece of art and not just a game. Is that? What do you think of that kind of overthinking?
I feel like it's maybe reading into the pigeons a little much. Like, I think they're there just because they feel good. Like, there's this whole, like, I spent like 30 or 40 minutes like writing the pigeons take flight algorithm and like trying to come up with something really, really simple that looked like you expected it to feel or something, and it ended up being really, really simple, but you get that staggered takeoff. Like the first version of pigeons, you'd like touch the rooftop and all of the pigeons on the whole rooftop, like all 50 pigeons would just like go and like erupt vertically at the same time, at the same velocity from the rooftop, and it was like deeply disturbing, but
that could be cool in a way.
Yeah, but you go through,
make it an Easter egg
curve, then you randomize it a little bit, and they kind of take off it looks like the birds take off when they see their neighbors take off, and the first birds took off because you got close, but almost none of that's true. It's just sort of a staggered thing that you can do in a one-dimensional game with a relatively fixed velocity. But having them feel like they were alive is kind of, I don't know, it's like the Metroid thing where it's okay. I'm super interested in these harsh environments with one human and lots of wildlife.
Yeah.
Like that's a super interesting place to be in, I think. And that was a tiny way of putting that in. And also my German friend Swain was like, you have to put in pigeons on the roof.
Really? And so it was somebody else's idea?
Yeah, it originally came from them, and I was like, oh yeah, that would be awesome. And he's like, no, do it. And I'm like, right.
Well, see, the thing, like the one human and wildlife and a threat of some kind that is bigger than the wildlife. Like, okay, you like Shadow the Colossus then? So
I have the geekiest photo of me with Fumito Ueda and his lead animator standing out at the IGF Pavilion last year.
Really?
I looked like the most monstrous dork. I'm like standing with my arm around him, with like big like cheesy smile, my guts sticking out a little bit with my like speaker badge, and it's like.
Were you not wearing your 5-finger shoes?
No 5-finger shoes at that time.
What was Fumito Ueda wearing? A shirt and
just a nice
jacket?
Shirt. He looked just like very almost salaryman, like,
I've interviewed him a bunch of times, and he's always he doesn't like being interviewed, I guess. So it's like
he doesn't interview much.
Yeah, I managed to get him like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah,
but
and when he does, it seems like there's very vague. Like so many of my favorite creators, I think, do that though. And I worry that, like, I don't mind talking and talking and talking and talking. And so many, Derek Yu doesn't interview particularly well, or I wouldn't. That's not true. Particularly articulately. And I feel like Ueda's the same way, even though they're both manipulating these spaces that absolutely mesmerize me.
Well, there's
I kind of worry that because I enjoy articulating myself, that somehow this is going to prevent me from focusing or crystallizing something the way that they do.
I think there are a lot of people, like, I think Ueda might be this case. He doesn't articulate on purpose. He wants to, he holds himself back because he doesn't want to say too much.
It's such a beautiful thing. Like, and I'm hoping, I haven't gotten to talk to him, I'm hoping that at least some of the Danish or Belgian guys who did Limbo have come over, because I'm passionately in love with that game.
Yeah, the game's pretty good. So you, in the talk yesterday, they were talking about how you liked Flashback and Out of This World.
Yeah.
No, I personally think Out of This World is the greatest video game ever made.
I'm completely terrible at it, but I don't think it takes away from all of the essential things it does right. And I love having Flashback and Out of This World and Prince of Persia kind of in a pile together.
Yeah.
Not because they're step platformers, but and Flashback's a little bit different because I think they have like 3 or 4 guys.
Yeah, but Flashback was a bunch of dudes.
Yeah.
Out of This World's just Eric Chahi.
Prince of Persia are these incredible one person, and Craig talked about it in his rant even. Like, they just keep coming up as these like one guy with a very clear, atmospheric, simple idea, and they stick around. Like, Rocket Birds is basically a Blackthorn clone. And
I love Blackthorn.
Blackthorn is basically a Flashback clone.
Flashback is basically an expansion of Out of This World, an expansion of the ideas. And Blackthorn I always thought of as like Flashback the video game, you know, whereas Flashback is like a kind of an interactive entertainment experience. Blackthorn is you're solving puzzles. And what do you think of Lost Vikings?
Lost Vikings I've played a little, but both Lost Vikings and Blackthorn I'm actually pretty bad at. I've watched friends play them, and they're awesome.
They're just they're just really. And people keep talking about, you know, serious games and casual games and social games and hardcore games. And it's something like, to me, like Lost Vikings, you can take something away from that. Like, you can take away real world logic and real world problem solving. Maybe not, but it applies, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's the future of games, personally. But what do I know, you know?
But it's the past too. Like Trine was kind of a cool pseudo Lost Vikings.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
But Trine plays like Bucky O'Hare, right, for NES.
I love that game.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a masterpiece or anything, but
no, but it has all those key ideas, those changing things on the fly and solving puzzles with your different abilities and so on and so forth. Like, I don't know. I like this idea of. Hopefully, this isn't too far off track. I'm really into this idea of picturing game evolution as these branching trees, and seeing which things that they've decided to iterate on. So you have this like Zelda tree that starts with Legend of Zelda, or maybe that like weirder Fairlight thing that was on like the Sinclair or something like that. But you basically have this thing that starts with Legend of Zelda, and you have Zelda 1, and then you have Zelda 2 that goes one way, and then you have Link to the Past and Link's Awakening that kind of go off on this other branch, and then everything from that point on iterates off there. So like the rest of Zelda kind of breaks off there, but even after Ocarina breaks off, to me, Wind Waker comes off of Link to the Past again. You know, it seems like it's bound much more to that than it is to Ocarina, despite having a lot of Ocarina's like visual or audio cues. But I feel like people haven't gone back. Like, it seems like there's so many branches left at the root of the tree that haven't been touched. And it's the same thing with Metroid, and it's the same thing with Super Mario, and that's kind of where Canabalt comes from, is taking Super Mario in another direction.
Yeah, you get that a lot with music. Like, you know, there's genres of music that will just, people keep building on top of one another's achievements, and then eventually it's like, you know, maybe we can go back to Chuck Berry and try something different with that. You know, or maybe we can go back to samba or bossa nova.
It's probably a bad example, but I feel like Vampire Weekend has gone back and dug up some old stuff in a really enjoyable way.
You see that happens all the time, and then that becomes the new pop music.
But I feel like we don't do it enough, kind of. I feel like people should not dig things up for the sake of nostalgia or dig things up
Well, I
for
think-
the sake of laziness, but dig things up to see where it came from.
And to see what else
Yeah.
could have
So I think that
evolved
happens.
from it.
I got really into like
People
pulp.
want the future, though.
Yeah, like I got into pulp adventure fiction earlier this year, where I was reading a lot of like Buck Rogers and Doc Savage and Fu Manchu, and started like trying to go farther and farther back, and like where did adventure fiction come from, and where did this pulp stuff come from?
Yeah.
And you get back to Sherlock Holmes, and you get back to Alexander Dumas, and they're phenomenal. Like
Yeah.
all these like pulp fiction is really fun to read, but even Conan is probably the like
Conan's fantastic,
Conan,
man.
and then like your Zane Grey westerns are probably like the top of the pulp pile.
Yeah.
And they absolutely pale compared to the people who sort of
Three Musketeers.
yeah,
Monte Cristo.
yeah, like they're pale shadows.